There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim are on the earth in those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this? I'm L.A. Marzulli. Join me as we go on the trail of the Nephilim. Today we're going to be talking about a subject which we've actually created a film on it. It's in Watchers 10. It's on the Kandahar giant, and I think you'll find that interesting. But first, a word from our trusted sponsor. A recent study found nearly half of patients following popular weight loss trends quit within a year. They often use lower than prescribed doses and ultimately lost less weight than they were led to believe. This is why I am beginning to use this new product. And folks, the results are pretty promising. It is designed to naturally support my body's own GLP-1 production and boost levels by over 50% without drugs, prescriptions, or needles. It promotes feelings of fullness, reduces cravings, reduces my hunger hormones, helps me to lose fat instead of muscle, and supports healthy blood sugar levels. Folks, summer is here. It's time to get that beach body ready. Grab yourself a bottle of GLP-1 now to save up to 44% only at http://trim.la.com. Plus, you'll also get 2 free ebooks titled The 3-Week Diet and 53 fat-burning smoothies and milkshakes. Once again, this offer is only available at http://trim.la.com. trimwithla.com. Folks, check it out. So I'm here with Ray. Ray, thank you so much for coming on the record and joining us. And I want to thank Terry Carter for kind of hooking us up. Someone sent me the interview that you did with Terry, and I reached out to Terry. I've met Terry years ago, and Terry sort of, was kind enough to give me your contact info, and here you are. And thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem, LA. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for having me on your show, and hopefully I can, shed some light on some of this stuff that people have been, unbeknownst to me, talking about for a very long time now. And I guess in recent years, it's gained more interest and more traction. So, yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I'll answer whatever I can just based on whatever I know.
Okay, well, let me just start at the beginning. Where's the connection here between your family, your family, and the so-called Kandahar giant? How does all this connect?
Well, I guess you could say it connects with my father and his childhood and upbringing with my grandmother, who, when he was young, he witnessed doing some weird things that he didn't really understand until he was a little older. When, he was kind of a wild and crazy guy in his youth, and we'd go out and yeah, we all are. And, he would, long story short, he would go out like camping with his buddies and stuff, in the mountains there. And there's a lot of, I guess, outdoorsy things to do. There's fishing, there's swimming, and camping and just, playing cards and stuff, right by the river. Just like a lot of people and a lot of cultures do. And
but let me answer, where is this taking place?
This is taking place in Kandahar, in Afghanistan.
Okay, I just wanted to.
My father was born in, I believe it was either 3/13/36 or 3/13/37. I have his death certificate.
Oh,
I might have to look, but it's one of those years. He was about 77 when he died, and that would have been in 2013 now, at the end of March. But this pretty much began, I guess, with him when he was just hanging out with his buddies in the mountains. And he said when he was by himself one time, he saw something that was really, really strange, and it piqued his interest. So he asked his mother about it. and she told him that, you know, there was something that lives in those caves and he's smart to stay out of those caves. She basically told him, you know, if you want to find out what that thing is, you know, you're probably going to regret it. So I advise you stay out. And then after that, he connected two and two, and he's like, oh, okay, I guess, you know, every time we go up near this cave and leave this animal, perhaps that's what we're doing. And that's indeed what they were doing. So
Now, when you say leave the animal, and I know something here, and I'll let you tell your story, then I'll tell you what I know. I think it's going to be interesting. When you say leave the animal, elaborate on that. What are you talking about?
well, my family owned animals over there. They raised for food, and periodically they would go to a certain location, and my father would witness his mother lead an animal up to this area where there was a cave, you know, like within a stone's throw away, very, very close to where they would tie this animal up. And that's pretty much what he told me he saw when he was very young. And then when he was older and he had seen this big giant footprint after it rained one day. And then when he questioned his mother about it, that's when, you know, he kind of made the connections that perhaps, you know, that's why they were leaving animals there when he was much younger. And yeah, it's really wild stuff, but you know, I can only go based on what my father told me, and he told me that he was a little bit freaked out when she told him that. So he dug a little more and asked her about it, and she pretty much said that it's a jinn. It's this I don't know if you would call it a demon or
Okay.
just another being that lives in the earth. But apparently there's a bunch of these things, and there were people for generations going and leaving these I guess you would call them offerings, peace offerings, or just like you know, like World War I Neville the Appeaser, something like that.
Right.
I don't know if there was like this this trust that had formed between certain bloodlines and families throughout, you know, time, but that's what I came to know from my father.
It's interesting you should say that, because I've heard that exact story from another source saying that they would bring goats or animals and tie the animal up near the cave, and of course that would appease the giant, or the giants plural that were there.
Yeah.
Did your father ever say anything about how big it was? Had he ever seen it, or did his mother ever say how big it was, or had she seen it?
I don't believe so. My father never told me he saw anything. He just told me he saw a gigantic footprint, and he didn't specify like how many digits it had, like if it had 6 toes or 5 toes. I didn't actually know about the 6-toe thing until much later,
Okay.
after he died, and I saw another video on it. And I did a little more digging, and I saw something about the Jaredites. I guess there were these people that came to America, and they fit the description of these tall redheaded giants. And that's I guess that's open for discussion. A lot of people are very skeptical of this whole subject matter. So
Well, no, I understand that, but you know, part of my wheelhouse is being on the trail of a Nephilim, which is the name of the show, and I know that the giants did exist. I mean, I have a picture of a giant skeleton that I discovered in the Catalina Island Museum, and I was probably never supposed to see that, but at any rate, there was a cache of records that had gone missing for like 40 or 50 years. And it was the Ralph Glidden collection. And there was a trunk that they found. John Borgina actually found it in the Wrigley Theater on the island of Catalina, in the attic in the middle of nowhere. So this made the front page of the LA Times. And one thing led to another. I was able to go out. So by the time I get to the museum, which is months later, everything's sorted, everything is cataloged, put in manila envelopes, folders, museum boxes tucked away in a vault. It's not like a cat. It's not like opening a trunk and going, "Oh my gosh, what's this?" It had already been sorted through. So I got there after the museum had closed. There were 2 tables with white paper on them. I had museum gloves. My camera was set up. John Borgina asked me, "What do you want to see?" I said, "Bring out the pictures." So he brings out several boxes, museum boxes of pictures, and I start sorting through them. Now, I've been in archive before, and most of the time you never find anything. But this was pay dirt immediately, and I found a picture of Ralph Gooden leaning on a shovel, and in front of him is a skeleton in situ. It's not disarticulated. It's not a bone pile. The skeleton is there. The skull is huge, and that skeleton. I actually sent that picture, my picture of the picture. Okay, so it's original stuff. I sent it to 3 different researchers. Excuse me. All of them put that at just around 9 feet tall. So we know that and Native Americans have the same oral tradition, same legend of red-haired giants, 6 fingers coming over to the Americas. So in the biblical narrative, it's and this is what's interesting. It talks about Joshua and Caleb going into the promised land, and the Nephilim tribes are there. So we think that there's a diaspora as Joshua and Caleb press the conquest. These guys just leave. So Afghanistan is not that far away from the modern nation of, let's say, Syria or Israel or Iraq. I mean, it just isn't. It's and if you think part of this thing is, you just said something that this has been going on for generations, and I've often stated that when the soldiers shot the Kandahar giant, the stench was unbelievable. The thing was about 12 to 14 feet tall, but the smell from the body was just unbelievable. And so you ask yourself, how old is this set? Is it 1,000 years old? Is it 2,000 years old? So that's what I know. And, it's like the Mormons call them Majoridites. So we're talking, I think, the same thing, maybe just different interpretations. So when you hear that, what do you think?
I mean, I wasn't there, but I think anything's possible. And my father said that the footprint he saw was almost as long as he was tall. He said it was very big. He almost could have laid down in it.
How old was your dad when he saw this?
He was a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a teenager when he saw this. And it really shook him. It really freaked him out. In fact, he was so scared that after that, he didn't go camping too much anymore. And his friends kind of made fun of them. And for the rest of his life, my dad said that he was very, very careful as to who he told about that. Just because it got him a lot of ridicule when he tried to talk about it with someone. And he was scared of his mother. So I guess he was told to keep it quiet as well.
Tell me more about his mother. I mean, your grandmother, what was she involved in?
That I'm not exactly sure, but my dad said that she would consort with spirits, and she would basically have these jinns, these creatures, sweep her floors for her. My father said that he can recall times when the broom was just levitating off the ground, and it was, that's very cliche. I told him, because witches are supposed to ride brooms and stuff. But he said, sure enough, she had all of these things in motion without even being present in the room. So I imagine what she did was she used it for either nefarious purposes or to, I don't know, I guess you could say just make life easier. Just, it's kind of like a Faustian thing where maybe she knew that later she's going to have to pay a price for it.
Her soul.
And that's why she had that tattoo on her forehead. It was, I guess, an attempt to mitigate any type of consequences in this life. Yeah.
What was the tattoo? Do you know? I mean, do you have a picture of it, or can you draw it? What did the tattoo show?
It was Arabic writing.
Okay.
I once saw a picture of my grandmother holding me in her arms when I was just an infant. And I don't know whatever happened to that photo. I think my uncle has it, and he's back in Pakistan, I believe, in Karachi. And he has been there since, I believe, the last pandemic started. He had to go back. He had a stroke or a heart attack or something when he was living with my sister in New Jersey. So he has all of these really interesting photos, and I believe he's the one that has one of those, but that's probably in the old country. So,
Wow. Wow. Have you
but
gone
I
back?
did see that before.
Have you gone back to Kandahar at all?
I've never gone back to Kandahar. No. 9/11 happened. I believe it was the third or fourth day of my ninth grade year when I was in high school. I was going to William Tennant High School in Warminster, Pennsylvania at the time, and that's pretty much when I decided they might think, I don't know. My uncle told me to never go there. They might think I'm a spy,
Okay.
straight up. Plus, it doesn't help that my uncle in foster care was in the CIA. So I don't know who would see that, but, people have their ways of doing research on you. And he told me it would be a good idea for you to never go to Afghanistan. It doesn't matter if you know me or our family, you will probably get kidnapped and ransomed.
Wow.
You may have to extract yourself.
Yeah.
So he warned me about it.
Wow.
And I don't speak the language. I did when I was a child. And then I went in foster care, and my parents' parental rights were terminated. So that would have been in, I believe, 98. I stopped visitations with them. I went into foster care in 95. And I was told by my uncle, even when I was an adult, to stay the heck out of there. Yeah, it wouldn't end well. I don't know how it would be now, but while the Americans were there, he said it wasn't a good idea.
That makes sense. Wow.
Yeah.
Why, can I ask you a personal question? How did you wind up in foster care?
Well, my father came here when I was about 10 months old. It was me, it was my sister immediately older than me. And then it was also my mother, her brother, who's my uncle, who I told you might have the photo of my grandmother. And it was my two oldest sisters as well. So it was the four kids, the parents, and my uncle. And I'm not sure why they wanted to move here, but I'm assuming it was because the Russians were invading. And my sister's 3 years older than me, and she was born in Pakistan. So they must have came here. My sister was born in I think 83 or 84. I believe 84, like late 84. And they left Afghanistan when I believe a couple of my uncles died fighting the Russians. And then my mother had family in Karachi, and we went there. And from there, we came to America.
I see. So from Kandahar to Pakistan to America. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. And there were stories about my father, how he got all of us into the country. And apparently he'd be gone for months and months at a time. And I don't know if he was working, clandestinely for, the U.S. government. I mean, we have always speculated that he did, and that's how we got here. And then it was a little weird, the circumstances in which, I was put in foster care. And then next thing you know, I have an uncle who was in the CIA, who lived there. And this happened right before 9/11 happened. And this guy was extremely scary, my uncle. Very, very cool guy. His name was John. And I missed the hell out of that guy. He was awesome.
Wow.
But we always had the feeling my dad maybe worked with U.S. intelligence or something, and that's how we were able to come here. And it could all be a farce. I mean, for all I know, he just smuggled heroin over there because he did that as well.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow. Let me ask you something. With your grandmother, did you ever meet your grandmother, your father's mother, the one who was for all practical purposes, a witch who would bring animals to the giant's cave?
Yeah. Apparently, she held me in her arms, and that's who was in the photo with me.
Okay, but you later on in life,
my father's mother,
no connection,
the witch, and no, I guess she died after we moved to America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did your dad ever point out to you where the cave's location was?
No, he just said it was it was near his village someplace. He said it was a little bit like off the beaten path. You know, you had to kind of know where it was. But apparently a lot of people knew, well, a lot of people who dabbled in those dark arts knew like about it. Other people, it's like there were rumors and I guess conspiracy theories
Right.
about
Right.
a giant living in the cave near the village. But you know, I guess you really had to be in the know.
Very interesting.
He said it was near the village.
Wow. Well, I just want to thank you so much for, coming on the record. It's it's an amazing story, and what what sort of your testimony is just yet another witness which validates what we broke in our Watchers series. That's Watchers 10 with the Kandahar giant. And I was actually threatened by a guy from a deep state, literally
I might be
at a
next.
conference.
I've thought about it. I've been warned about it. I had a couple friends who saw the Terry Carter interview tell me, you know, people might come after you for this. And I'm like, well, people have been coming after me my whole life. I have a bullet in my neck. I mean, what do you want me to say? You know, I'm not scared to die. I'm not suicidal. Let's throw that out there, but I'm not scared to die. So,
well, what's interesting is the shooters were dispatched. In other words, one patrol. The story, as we were told from the shooter, there was a patrol in Afghanistan, in Kandahar, looking for high value targets, and they were dispatched. They missed their rally point. They missed their second rally point. Next morning, a helicopter drops them off in the same location, and they're following a trail. And we show all this in the Watchers, in our Watchers. It's in Watchers 10, and they come around this area. It's a very mountainous area, and they come around this like trail, and they see bones and just it's like this really weird deal. And they're high up, and below them is the valley, and the cave is above them. And as they're walking on this like ledge that overlooks the valley, that's when the giant comes out. 6 fingers, red hair. He's brandishing a very large spear. He moves with such agility that it stuns the group. It stuns the platoon. They're frozen in their tracks. Who wouldn't be? They're seeing something that's 14 feet tall. I mean, that's a really big guy. And before anybody could do anything, the giant has run and speared one of the guys and held him up. And then somebody yells, shoot him in the head, shoot him in the head. And they just open fire. They essentially decapitate him. And then what happens is this guy who is impaled, he dies, unfortunately, never makes it out of there. And they chopper, a big, huge Huey comes in. They net the giant up. They take the body back, and they're all debriefed and told never to say anything about it again. Where have we heard that before? I've had other people come up to me at conferences and talk about this, other witnesses, and that's all I'll say. I believe it's true. I believe that, your story just adds another layer of credibility to what we're looking at. And in my opinion, it's very possible that the giants from 3,000 years ago literally left the area and migrated into Kandahar and basically set up shop there. Because, one thing that you said, this goes back generations. So, it's interesting that you know that and stated that. Thanks for coming on the record, Ray. I'll give you the last word, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I do know something else that I spoke to my father about that I didn't mention in Terry's interview. And that was that there are these creatures in the earth called Madazume. I spoke to Terry about this, but I didn't say it in the interview with him. Essentially, they call them like, I guess a word for monster, but they're like these acid lickers. And I'm not sure if it's in the Quran or in the Hadith, but apparently they live in the earth and they're licking the side of the mountain and their tongues are like acid. And at the end of every day, they get tired and they say, okay, we're going to stop. And if they don't say we're going to stop, inshallah, then otherwise the mountain grows back. But if the day that they say we're going to stop and start tomorrow, inshallah,
In God's
the
name.
mountain's not going to grow back and they're going to break out of the earth. And my dad said that in the end of days, there are going to be these creatures, Mavizume, that come to the surface and attack people. And I don't know if it's these giants. I don't know if it's other things as well. But I thought that was another tidbit that should maybe be shared, because my grandmother is over here telling my dad that they're jinns. And then, you know, she's doing the black magic. She's leaving animals up there. And here the Quran or the Hadith, I'm a Christian. I'm not a Muslim, but I know that my dad said in one of those books, there's a tale of these creatures that live in the earth, and, you know, God's supposed to release them, you know, in the end of days.
And what's interesting about that, that ties into, in my opinion, where there's actually scripture that talks about, you know, in the day, it'll be like the days of Noah when Jesus returns. I mean, that's what Jesus tells us himself. It'll be like the days of Noah when I return. And that begs the question, what differentiates those days? The giants were here. The giants were roaming the earth. So I find it very interesting, the correlation, you know, in the Hadith or in the Quran, that talks about the same thing. I find that very, very interesting. But Ray, thanks so much for coming on the record. I really appreciate it. And please stay in touch, and thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. And, you know, if there's anything else that I can help with or answer, you know, just based on my very, I guess, limited secondhand knowledge, you know, I'd love to.
Thank you so much. John, the website is there. Please put it down. You can see it for yourself, folks. We're really trying to push this. This is July 27th. It's coming up. I will be watching it. It's a streamed event. It's in Italian or in English. Obviously, we'll be looking at it in English from here. And it's just going to be great. The scientists Biondi, Filippo Biondi, and Corrado Malanga. I've interviewed both of these men several times on the show, and we're pushing this again because I think it's that important. If this holds true, it rewrites everything. And this just came in, and it's from Cheryl, and I just want to thank Cheryl for writing these kind words. It bolsters me. Hello, LA. I so much enjoy your YouTube show. Thank you, Cheryl. I also believe in the pre-tribulation rapture of the church. When I was watching today, Monday, about your teaching on the rapture, you described going up at the rapture and then said there was a reverential silence that fell over us. Wow, wow, wow. Get this, folks. I knew then that I'd have to tell you the dream of the rapture. I actually had a dream, not a vision like you did, but I have had visions of my place in heaven where I was actually there. So I know how that feels, just as you described your vision as actually being there and experience. This is supernatural stuff. Some of you are going to frown. Some of you are going to have trouble with this, but we live in a supernatural world. And from time to time, it's all biblical. God does things. He opens our eyes. He shows us different things. He takes us places. Think about it. Anyways, my rapture dream goes as follows. I was staring intently out my window up at the clouds in the night sky. I kept staring at the clouds, and then a form appeared. And then there was Jesus in the clouds, filling up the night sky. A reverential silence fell over the whole earth. No dogs barking, no insects, nothing. There was complete silence and such reverence. So when you said those words, reverential silence, the exact same words that I intensely felt in my dream, chills went all over me. And so I felt I should let you know. I felt that reverential silence too. Thanks for all you do, LA. She then writes, you are a legend. Maybe in my own mind, but thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I really do. And that's from Cheryl. So let's get into this. This, again, is, it's actually from the Jerusalem Post, which is kind of interesting. And, you know, the giant humans once roamed the United States. Bum, bum, bum. There is a certain debate among scholars regarding the truthfulness of the claims made about the giants of Lovelock Cave. During the initial excavations, remains of two red-haired giants were reported. One was a female measuring 1.98 meters in height, and the other was a male measuring over 2.44 meters. So they're up around 7 feet. roughly, right? However, further investigation did not find any evidence to support such claims. In Sarah Winnemucca Hopkins' book, Life Among the Paiutes, Their Wrongs and Claims, she does not mention giants, but refers to what is called barbarians. Research conducted at the University of Nevada suggests that one of the giants found was actually 1.83 meters tall, not the claim 2.44 meters. A short time after the second excavation in 1931, an article published in a local newspaper, Nevada Review Minor, claimed that two giant skeletons were discovered in the dry lake bed near Lovelock, with heights of 2.6 meters. So now you're looking at like basically 8-9 feet, and then 3 meters, which is a 9-footer. And they had been buried in a similar manner to the way it was done in ancient Egypt. Despite all this sounding absurd, the legend of these strange people spread throughout the Americas. For example, in the 16th century, a Spanish conquistador named Pedro Cieza de Leon documented an ancient Peruvian story about the origin of the giants. In his writings, de Leon wrote that the figures came by sea on rafts made of reeds. Wow. Like large boats, and that some of the men were so tall that an average man would only go as high as their knees. Furthermore, further north in the Andean mountains between Peru and Bolivia, elongated skulls were found. The remains are about 3,000 years old and much larger than those of regular humans. Some of them also had red hair. So it goes on from there, but let's sort of get into this. First of all, the boat made of reeds. If you go online, you can check out Thor Heyerdahl, right, who made a reed boat and then left basically from the Strait of Gibraltar and went and traveled on that boat and wound up in the New World. Without a map, without a compass, he just put up the sail and off he went. So what are we to believe? There were giants here. But the reason why it's been deliberately obfuscated, because it points back to the supernatural worldview. It points back to the biblical narrative about the Nephilim. It points back to Genesis 3:15, i.e. the seed war. The seed of a dragon will be at war at enmity with the seed of the woman. For the life of me, I don't understand why. Well, I do understand. The reason why it's kept under the radar, the reason why it's deliberately obfuscated, the reason why people are threatened is because it points back to the validity and the veracity of the biblical prophetic narrative. And the powers that be do not want that. I've been to the Lovelock Cave. I was there a while back with the late Joe Taylor. It was great to be with him, also Ron Moorhead. And there was, and I think I've talked about this before, but I'll just reiterate it again. On the wall of the cave, there was this black hand. No one knows who put it there, but it was like 2 or 3 times my size. And when we got to the cave, about a month after it was reported that that black hand was there, it was gone. It was like the BLM or whoever came into the cave and erased any sign of it. Why would they do that? Why would anybody do that? Why not study it? Why not figure out what was it made of? How was this, projected onto the rock? Was it paint? Was it ash? Or was it something else? The cave is sealed up. So the trail is very cold at this point, almost 100 years old. And both, okay, so you go into the entrance of the cave. To your left and to your right, there were tunnels, and that's where they did the digs. And that's allegedly where they found the giant skeletons. I had a book. Actually, Mondo's got the book now. Someone gave it to him, but I had the same book. It was from UCLA, I believe, and it cost me about $120. And it's just one of those academic books that basically are out of print. You've got to really hunt for them. But it talked about the Paiute and what happened at Lovelock, and it showed some of the skeletons and all this other stuff. One more point of interest. Years ago, there was 2 gentlemen who contacted me about a very large skeleton that was on display in Virginia City. So at the time, a friend of mine who was still a private detective, I gave him the address. He went in, he got the name and the phone number of the person who owned the property. I cold called this guy, just cold called him. And I said, look, you don't know me from Adam. I'm a researcher. I'm a filmmaker. I write books about the Nephilim. If you have a giant in your museum, because the museum was shut down, So it wasn't open to the public, but at the time, decades before, it had been a museum and it hadn't been opened up in years. So the guy calls me back or answers me, and we have this conversation, and I fly in to Virginia City, and I go to this nondescript building, and I walk in. I was immediately blown away. There was this huge stuffed eagle, like really, really big. It was there, and as well as other artifacts. And I began to say, well, can we look at the skeleton? He goes, sure. So we go down this flight of stairs, and it goes down, 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 down. And there's like lights that are there, but they're on strings. And there's a corridor with these huge timbers, huge posts. And the ceilings are 10, 12 feet tall at least. And there's a plank, a gate, a walkway. And there are stalls, and there is ancient farm machinery and stacks of old newspaper and piles of old tools. I mean, it was like, what is this? And we go to the end of that hall. There's something out of Goonies, really. There's a wood plank walkway. That's what I wanted to say. And we get to the end of the walkway. And at this point, I'm getting a little nervous, and I'm wondering, is something not good going to happen here? Why am I down here? What's going on? I said, well, where is it? And the man goes, it's over there. And there was a ladder. And you remember this, we're down on the ground floor. There are huge posts which go up into the holding up the ceiling, the floor above us. These posts had to have been 12 to 16 feet anyway, at least 12 feet tall. They were really big, and this is ancient construction. I'm in the bowels of this building. I don't know how old it is, but it's really old. And the man goes, it's on that ladder, go up the ladder, slide the door over, and you'll see it. So I'm going, okay. And I get on the ladder, I climb up the ladder, I slide the door back, and there in front of me is a skeleton. Okay. But the skeleton is of a Native American. It was at one time a museum piece. How do I know that? Because the bones were numbered in red, like a red magic marker, but very, very fine. It was laid out at a display. Above it was this glass. And apparently, and this according to other people that have written into me and talked about this, when the museum was open, you would stand above and look down through the glass at the skeleton. Well, here's what happened. The glass would distort the image and make it look like a giant. It was about a 5'6" to 5'8" Native American. I have pictures of that. I will not show them out of respect, because this is First Nation people. It's somebody's uncle. It's somebody's grandfather. And when I got off the ladder, I told him, I said, you need to repatriate this. You need to just bury it. What are you going to do with this? So that's it. So that also came allegedly from in and around the Lovelock Cave. The legend persists. We'll probably never get to the bottom of it. We will never know the truth. But we know that Sarah Winnemucca talked about the red-haired giants, allegedly with 6 fingers, double rows of teeth. The paper says they were barbarians, not giants. Not so fast, citizen. That's not the story I'm familiar with. I've seen, before they switched the curator of the museum, the old curator of the museum at Lovelock actually had the skulls on display. The pictures of those skulls are right here on the Trail of the Nephilim. You can go and check that out for yourself, lamarzulli.net. But it was Aaron Judkins, the archaeologist, who gave me those pictures, and they are included in On the Trail. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. By the way, I will be at the Prophecy Watchers Conference at the end of the month. I'll be speaking twice, definitely about the Roswell connection, Roswell 1 and Roswell 2. I may circle back and do Days of Chaos. Why? Because we are living in the days of chaos. And this book was published in 2015. I will probably do an update on what's going on, but this is a great book. It's a good primer. And if you don't know about end times, check this out. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, folks, there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim.